Thank you so much for giving Film Fights a shot. These first few episodes are still somewhat of a work in progress, but we really wanted to start sharing our new project with you. Let us know what you think and enjoy the episode. Spaceballs versus Armageddon.
Spaceballs.
Young Frankenstein versus Napoleon Dynamite.
Young Frankenstein.
Good answer. Minority Report versus Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction.
The Shining versus Annie Hall.
Ooh.
Annie Hall.
I'll say The Shining.
The Shining versus Annie Hall on this episode of Film Fights. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Fights, a podcast that randomly pits two films against each other on a quest to be the next movie that I, maybe you listening out there, sit down to watch. My name is Matt Dodd. Today I'm joined by Remington Swales and Joe Warner to represent Annie Hall versus The Shining, respectively. Before we get into that fight, though, our last winner, Mr. Remington Swales, chose the Aristocats for us to talk about first. Guys, have you seen that film? Obviously, I assume you have, Remy, but
Yes, I have.
how long has it been since you've seen it?
Probably about 2 years. A good 2 years.
Joe, have you seen it?
I watched it a couple months ago. I don't think I finished it, though.
Why not?
I just didn't.
It was just kind of background for you, just watching it?
I guess so. I probably fell asleep or something. I don't know.
How could you fall asleep with a bunch of cats singing to you? Well, maybe that's why.
That's my normal life, so, just...
That's a good point.
You
Little Jeff
do have a
Goldblum.
singing cat.
He's an amazing sight to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more of a sight to hear, but... yeah.
Fair enough. This is an audio medium. That's true. We should play to the sound. I like that movie. I mean, it's a great Disney classic.
But where do you feel it falls in the kind of modem of Disney animated?
Especially like
Classics and
the
stuff.
Disney classics.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
high
you've
middle.
got Lady and the Tramp.
It's
and,
high middle.
Little Mermaid.
Yeah,
and stuff.
It's really good, but it's not like one of the top ones.
yeah.
Still very, very good.
It's not your like Snow White or...
I mean, is Snow White really that good, or is it just
It's just
because
'cause
it's the first
That's
one they
one I haven't
did,
seen in a long time.
and it's a classic fairy tale?
Sleeping Beauty is actually fantastic.
I
watched
mean,
that
Beauty
one
and the
kinda
Beast is
recently.
recently.
Watched that a long time.
fantastic.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Snow White, but I'd imagine... I remember it being a very good movie. I think most of it is because it was like 1939, too. Like, it's just
Yeah.
such a technical, impressive achievement.
It's really weird watching it now.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It's very bizarre. A lot of the concepts seem very outdated. The animation looks
As opposed
very
to when you
old.
saw it in the 1930s, Remy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, did we not cover that? I am, in fact,
Remy's a time
98
traveler.
years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
So,
he travels through time.
Okay.
yeah.
He's seen movies. He only watches movies
As
when they were released. Yeah,
back,
correct.
Yeah.
So it's the only way to watch it.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
the best way. If you have that option, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, of
That's
course.
my
Yeah.
question.
Opening night.
Use my silver spoon to get where I want to go.
All right, guys, let's get to tonight's battle. Remy, you will be representing Annie Hall. How long has it been since you've seen that film?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. Let's say 9 years.
That sounds good. Tell me a little bit about what Annie Hall's about.
Annie Hall is a movie about, it's a love story in New York, in Manhattan, I think. It's somewhere in New York. But either way, it's, just kind of this very interesting comedy take from Woody Allen on, what it is like to go through a relationship and break up and be in love and experience all these emotions, but it's done in a very unique way. And so, I mean, it's really cool. It's a very funny movie, very smart. Not exactly a whole lot of story happening, but it's more of just a very unique and entertaining kind of perspective on a normal everyday situation.
No, I thought Annie Hall took place in Cincinnati. Am I wrong?
I'm not going to call either one of
I'm
you
like
out.
95% sure it's Cincinnati.
Well, I know he made the movie Manhattan, which was basically Annie Hall again.
No, it wasn't Annie Hall again.
We'll get into that.
Like
Annie
I
Hall
said,
was
it's
in
been a
17.
while since I've seen it.
But first,
It
thank you
wasn't
for that, Remy.
Cincinnati. It was New York.
In
Every Woody Allen movie's New York.
in the opposing corner, the whispering great himself, Joe Warner's representing
Hello, The
The
Whispering
Shining.
Great.
When was the last time you saw The Shining?
It's been within the year. I don't remember exactly when I saw it, but fairly recently.
Okay.
Wow.
If somebody doesn't know what The Shining is, what's that movie about?
It's probably one of the best horror movies ever made. Stephen King adapted novel. Of course, Stanley Kubrick, who's the ultimate genius for film. Stylistically, thematically, visually, just an all-around fantastic movie.
All right, it was time to convince me on what to watch this weekend. I have seen both films, but it has been a long while for each. First off, I want to ask, they're very different movies. Is it all going to come down on what mood I'm in?
I think it depends on whether or not you want to like kind of watch a movie that you can relate to and has stuff that you can identify with as just like being a person, or if you want to watch something from a deranged psychopath that makes you fear for your life.
I disagree
Maybe-
with that. Any
maybe I can
movie,
relate to that.
You can't just say just because it's a horror movie you can't relate to it in any way. There's still tons of characterization in that movie you could study and watch.
How relatable do you feel to the guy who is stuck in a mansion for winter months by himself with his wife
It's
and
just-
kid?
Study on isolation and what it could do to you.
Yeah, I've
And
been
what do you-
isolated more than I've been in New
Matt,
York.
I've never seen
I don't know if
Matt
this is in
with people, so
Yeah, it's true.
I'm
It's
sure
true.
you can
He is
relate
here
to it
via
really well.
Skype.
I'm a this is a hologram version of me sitting in front of you right now.
No, but I don't think it's fair to say you can't relate to a movie just because it's has more supernatural or fantastical elements to it, or if it's from a personality type that's completely off the wall. You could still watch a character and study them and learn something new just about the human experience. Or
It's an
Even about
observational
yourself.
experience for sure. I
But
mean,
you
The
can't-
Shining is not something that you like can really identify with and be like, yeah, I remember that time I was stuck in a mansion and my kid decided
but you
to
can't
start saying
simplify
red
it
rum.
that there.
And
You can't
like,
simplify
Yeah,
it to
but
that
I've,
extent.
I've never gone through that kind of relationship that you have in Annie Hall either. But I mean, it's
Neither have I,
It's
but it's got-
elements of things that you
Right.
can pull from. It's the same
Yeah.
with that.
But that's
I mean,
the
I
thing
agree.
is like Annie Hall is not just the relationship. It's just kind of like life. I mean, it is kind of a dated movie in certain respects, but it's just about kind of socializing. So, I mean, it's things where there's so much more to relate to it instead of just dating and romance and, you know, finding somebody that you find attractive and you want to be with them. It's a lot of those kind of everyday quirks and stuff that you find yourself in, not just with loved ones, but with friends and family and like how you deal with them. And he has a very comedic take on that I think everybody can kind of appreciate.
Since these films are so different, what do they do within their respective genre? Like, what does Annie Hall do as far as separating itself from a comedy, and what does The Shining do from really separating itself from a horror? 'Cause like you said, it is regarded as one of the best horror movies of all time. Like, how does it
Mhm.
really separate?
I mean, for The Shining, I mean, a lot of horror movies like to rely on a jump scare or, you know, taking a long time to build up for something. Where for The Shining, there's always a consistent, uneasy feeling you have while watching it. You always feel some kind of tension. You don't know what it is or why it's there or what's
It's like
happening.
a lot more
but
of suspense and thriller, kind of. Because
Yeah.
I would say it's more that than like just a horror. Because when I think horror, I'm thinking Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw and like all these just kind of
they all
you
fall
know,
into horror.
blood
Though.
and gore.
I mean,
it is
there's
like a
ghost
horror
and
movie,
blood and all
but
that,
I mean, but that's kind of stereotypically what I think when
You think
you
of
know
a
somebody
slasher
says
movie.
horror. Yeah, exactly.
Which, I mean, The Shining, in a way,
But there's-
sort of has elements of
it
that.
moves
there's
towards
different
that.
levels of it, though.
Right.
Because I mean,
That's-
yeah, there's Texas Chainsaw, Friday the 13th. They have somewhat creepy elements, but
Mhm.
they're kind of more
somewhat creepy elements.
But they're more like straightforward
Texas
slasher.
Chainsaw
like,
Massacre. Yeah,
oh
they're
wait, I
more-
thought you were talking about The Shining. That's like
No,
got
yeah.
tons of
No.
creepy
Like
elements.
there's kind of like the middle ground where you can find creepy elements out of it before there are 10 sequels to it. You can find something creepy about it, but it might not, keep you up at night. It might not keep you on the edge of the seat.
When was the first time you saw The Shining?
I don't know. I may have seen a little bit as a kid or something.
And how did that affect you? Does this account for
I mean,
the way
it's
you
not
are
like
now?
a specific memory I have, so I can't really explain.
So you
the
blocked
first
it
time I
out, is
saw
what
it.
you're telling me.
I just
It's a
don't
traumatic
know.
experience.
It
Are we
was.
digging up some things right now, Joe? I'm so sorry.
I mean, there's
didn't know
other horror
this.
movies that really creep me out, like the time my dad left Poltergeist on, and
I've never
I
seen
was
that.
afraid of trees for a while.
That's interesting.
What? I've never seen that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, no.
Oh, no, it was actually my mom blamed it on Poltergeist, but it was actually Wizard of Oz. That I had a nightmare
okay.
about a tree attacking me, and it was
Yeah.
from the Wizard of Oz.
Okay,
My mom
that-
thought it was Poltergeist. They're like really creepily anthropomorphic, and they're like ripping apples out of their head and
Yeah.
like throwing them at you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that discussion another time because it's been a long time since I've seen The Wizard of Oz as well. But I'd love to rewatch
That'd be a
that.
good one.
'cause
Wizard
it
of
is-
Oz versus Poltergeist.
It's creepy. Like
Yeah.
when you think about it, there's a lot of weird stuff in The Wizard of Oz. Anyway, so with Annie Hall, how does it really separate
Right.
itself comedically and in that kind of style?
I mean,
It's
that's
not a
easy.
straight up comedy either.
It's not.
It's
I mean, it's
drama.
much more like observational comedy and stuff. But the biggest thing that separates it is that it's much smarter. It's not necessarily just slapstick, but it's not just humor in the way that like Marx Brothers was and stuff. But I mean, Woody Allen's character does this thing where he breaks the fourth wall, where he talks to the audience, like as you watching. So I mean, again, that kind of just really enforces that relatable scenario of like being able to identify with these characters, not to where you're just watching this happen, but I mean, he talks to you. The characters on the screen are addressing you directly and really giving you a direct line to be involved in this story and what's happening. So, I mean, that's easily the most unique thing about it. And I think it has some hilarious scenes about, Like there's one scene where he's standing in line for a movie theater in front of a guy who's pontificating behind him to like his date about some sort of, artistic perspective on this director's previous works versus the nuances he's used later. And he just starts talking to the audience saying, this like kind of aristocratic garbage that this guy's spouting to make himself seem more intelligent could just put you to sleep. And then the guy starts talking with him to the audience. Is like, hey, these are my genuine thoughts. I happen to like really feel this way. Like, you have no right to judge me. But it's just like a really interesting exchange because it's something we've all kind of thought before, overhearing conversations at a diner or at a theater or wherever you might be. And just having that internal dialogue of what that person really is like just based off of the small conversation you're overhearing. You guys are very attentive to this. I appreciate that.
You left
very
out the
much.
best part of that scene is where he pulls the guy he was talking about out from behind a sign, and that guy tells the other guy who's pontificating that you have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. And that guy's like, what? He's like a major film critic or something like that.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's
That is such a good
I kind of
scene.
remember that.
Yeah. It's
I remember
something
that
we've all
scene. I
wanted
don't
to do
remember the
several
details.
times.
Right,
Sure.
right. It's so funny to think like, this person is so stupid and has no idea what they're talking about. And be like, I totally know what I'm talking about. And then to be able to pull out a professional, somebody who is an authority figure on the matter and be like, you're with me, right? And they're like, yeah, you're right. This person's stupid.
So, Joe, in general, would you pick like horror genre films over more like heavier written comedic kind of things like Annie Hall? You think that's just kind of more your type of movie?
Maybe. I mean, horror is always good to watch with people.
I disagree.
You watch it by yourself?
I never watch it.
Well,
You just never watch it. So
yeah.
No.
I
you
guess
have no-
the flip side of this question is Remy will say,
I am very biased against horror
Yeah,
films.
there
You
you
hate all horror movies?
Yes, which is why I would say I consider The Shining more of like a suspense thriller as opposed to a horror.
Wait. So you're putting The Shining in a certain box so you can keep a certain opinion about horror movies?
No, I have an opinion about horror movies. I'm
But
just
now
saying
you're
The
saying
Shining
The
doesn't
Shining
fit
is not a
that.
horror movie. It's the horror movie to watch, though.
I said I consider it more of a suspense and a thriller than a horror movie.
But horror can have elements of suspense in it.
It's supposed to,
Sure.
but I think the way that
Like good ones will
general
have-
horror sells them.
But but it's still considered a horror movie. You can't say it's not a horror movie just because you don't like horror movies.
I said I consider it more of a suspense and a thriller. I didn't say it's not a horror movie.
and to be fair too, like how many movies generally would you say you've seen that are considered horror? I'm just looking for some broad number.
2.
What movies were those?
I had the misfortune of watching the movie Quarantine at one point.
Okay.
And what was the other one? It started with a P.
So you don't classify The Shining as horror because you have seen that, or you're saying in addition to that you've seen 2 others?
No, I'm saying I wouldn't classify it as a horror primarily.
Okay.
I mean, like The Sixth Sense, I mean, yes, it has elements of horror to it because it has those moments of like, shock and disturb. You're dealing with dead people and there's hangings and all kinds of stuff. So it has elements of horror in nature, but I would say the way the story is told, the way the movie is built, that it's built much more as a suspense and a thriller as opposed to just selling it on that idea of like, look at all this scary stuff.
Yeah.
Because I guess that, to me, is the thing about horror is it relies primarily on scariness factor as opposed to suspense and mystery and like that idea of like, oh, what's going to happen next? Not just like, what's behind that door? Is somebody going to kill this character?
Yeah.
Have you seen the original John Carpenter Halloween?
No.
That's definitely like my second best horror movie.
I think I watched it once as a kid, but I think I blacked that out because I don't remember anything about it.
And I love like Jaws. I think too can be classified as a horror movie.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
one of my favorite horror movies, even
Yeah.
though it's very like that. It's a bending kind of that genre,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think it definitely could be classified that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
suspense and horror. Even Alien.
Stuff that
very
relies
common.
primarily on scaring
jump
people,
scare.
inducing fear.
And you don't prefer that, like you don't really enjoy watching those movies, so you avoid them. But do you like enjoy a type of movie like The Shining, which you don't really consider as jump scary, like more just intense and creepy?
Yes.
Okay, but
Yeah.
that's good.
Call
I
me
mean, I'm just trying to
old-fashioned,
establish your background there. 'Cause
But I don't
people know.
prefer my movie experiences to be fear-inducing.
Okay,
I
that's
don't
fair.
find that an enjoyable
No,
So-
outing.
not even suspenseful movies, though, 'cause those could be fear-inducing too if they're suspenseful enough.
No.
They can unnerve you.
Doesn't me. I can only have one emotion at a time. So I either have suspense or fear.
The Remy bot.
I've always
only is
thought
set
one
way.
emotion was too many for you, Remy.
No, that's all I have one at a time. I upgraded recently, so
Oh, okay.
you know.
1.0.
Yeah.
Remy emotion.
Remy talked a little bit about one of his memorable scenes. I'm assuming that's one of his favorite scenes from Annie Hall. What's one of your favorites from The Shining?
The Shining. It's full of just great scenes too. Which
Pick one.
pick one.
Red rum.
No, it's just the obvious one that everyone knows about.
Fine. The
I mean,
blood
it's
in
one-
the
it's a-
elevator doors.
No, it's
Here's Johnny.
shut up. There's one. It's a very simple scene, but it's very. I don't know. I always found it unnerving is when Shelley Duvall has the baseball bat, and Jack Nicholson's slowly climbing up the stairs, and she's waving the bat at him just very weakly, and it's this very intense, crazy moment where things are at that tipping point. It's just, I don't know. It's just something that always stuck out with me. That scene. It's very off-putting to watch.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I'm
you're
talking
talking
No,
about.
that's
I don't remember
I
seeing
remember
it
that.
all.
Yeah, because I remember she's just kind of like wildly flailing
Yeah,
it,
and
but
it's
like,
not hard.
like, yeah, she's not swinging it. She's just kind of in
Trying to keep
pure
him away.
terror, just
Yeah.
kind of like flailing.
She
her
doesn't know
arm
what to do.
around.
She
Yeah.
doesn't want to hurt him. That's her husband.
Yeah,
But he is going crazy
Yeah.
at the same time.
That's not her husband anymore.
no, that's good. That's a great answer. I mean, because you obviously like you could have gone with something much more iconic,
Yeah.
of just like, oh yeah, when he
I
like
mean, there's
tears
a ton
the
of
door, when he
memorable
does this.
scenes in there too. Yeah.
Right, great. No, that's awesome. Let's briefly talk about the two directors because they're both very acclaimed in their own right. This could be considered each their best movie. Briefly about maybe like what other movies you've seen from them that you really love. Is this your favorite of theirs?
Yes.
What other movies have you seen of Woody Allen?
I saw like Midnight in Paris. I saw Match Point and Vicky Cristina Barcelona, and I've seen a fair amount of his movies. They've all kind of become the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't really like his movies that much. His older stuff I like a lot, but a lot of his newer stuff I don't really care for.
The Larry David one was good too.
Okay.
Whatever works.
Never saw it.
I didn't like that.
And he's
one
been
much.
making a movie every
I
year
mean, it's
pretty
not
much
like-
for the last 10 years or
No,
something.
last
like that.
50 years since this.
Yeah.
Woody
He's been
Allen?
making a long time.
See, he's-
Look at his IMDb page.
he's
Every year
gone-
since the 60s.
No, I believe you. I'm just saying
1
he's
to
made
2 movies.
too many. He's made too many. He's going for
Debatable.
quantity over quality at this point. So
Hey, if you can get away with it, why not go for it?
he gets away with a lot, but we'll not go down that road. So I will not advocate for him as a person in general, but the movie Annie Hall, I would recommend that people watch. Just don't look up anything about Woody Allen or really start to like idolize him or
Oh,
anything
yeah.
after the
It
fact.
looks like starting with 1982, he's done a movie since then every year.
That
Really?
is absurd.
At least one.
I'm pretty.
Nobody should do that many
There,
movies.
he's got a couple gaps in the
Oh, okay.
70s, but
There's a lot of things he shouldn't do, but
yeah. Okay, so for Kubrick, what about you?
Kubrick. I mean, The Shining's fantastic, but I don't think it's still not my favorite Kubrick movie. I mean,
Doctor Strangelove.
Doctor Strangelove is
Yeah.
definitely up there. I actually really enjoy Eyes Wide Shut.
You pervert.
You know it.
Joe just gave the biggest wink I've ever seen in my life to Remy.
What size do winks come in?
Small.
I don't know. I mean, how can you make them bigger than just your eye? I thought it was just kind of a one size fits all. But you're just opening your mouth.
No, that was more
Does
emphasis.
that make
on the
your
wink
wink bigger?
Yeah, it's the emphasis.
Oh, okay.
It's all right. I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm tired of talking to you guys.
I'm also
tired
curious.
of talking to me too.
I'm curious how many other like terms for murder or killing like Stephen King went through before he found one that like worked backwards as like a word he could use. Before he got to red rum for murder, if he was like, "Oh, can I kill? Lick? No, that doesn't work." Like stab.
Name? No.
What would stab be?
Someday, if you ever,
Bats.
if you ever interview him, I want you to ask him that question.
Like bats.
That was the
bats.
alternate line.
Like, oh,
Bats.
that doesn't work.
Let's see how much you really know about your two films today. We have a few trivia questions. These films have a rating on Rotten Tomatoes that is the exact reverse of each other, which seemed appropriate to me. What ratings would those be? What numbers?
98 and 89. That seems too high. 87.
And 78? Which is which?
Shining's definitely.
I'm going to
87.
say Shining would be 87, Annie Hall 78.
Interesting. You were right, actually, with 98, 89.
Really?
Annie Hall is 98. The Shining
Really?
is 89.
Wow. I didn't think that movie was that good. I like it. I mean,
IMDb
like,
has The Shining at 8.4, Annie Hall at 8.1.
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Annie Hall and all, and I would choose to watch it over The Shining, but as far as like
Well, obviously.
technical basis of, like which film is better.
I think Shining's just more of a mainstream favorite as opposed to Annie Hall.
I think now.
I think more
like,
people have seen The
as time
Shining
has
are
passed.
recognized.
Right, but
can
isn't
recognize it, but
Annie
Annie
Hall
Hall
rated higher than The Shining on the first one?
critically.
I
Rotten
guess,
Tomatoes, yeah.
Yeah.
critically.
That's what I'm saying. That's weird.
One of these films won an Oscar. Which one and what for?
Annie Hall for writing screenplay.
Annie Hall for directing or editing.
Screenplay.
It's kind of a trick question. It is Annie Hall, but Annie Hall won 4 Oscars. What were they?
Oh, okay, screenplay.
Directing, editing.
Best
I
original.
want to say one of the
screenplay.
actors.
Uh,
Either supporting
The lady who was in
female lead or male
it.
lead.
Judi Dench. No.
Diane
Judi
Keaton.
Dench.
Dame Judi Dench.
Diane Keaton. I want to see Diane Keaton.
Diane Keaton. Yeah.
Editing, directing, screenplay.
That's 3 out of 4.
That I
Diane
got.
Keaton.
Yeah.
Editing,
Actress is correct.
screenplay.
Writing is correct. Directing is correct.
He won Best Director for that?
Best
did.
Oh,
actor.
interesting. No, he didn't.
He did not win Best Actor. He won
Oh.
Best Picture. It's the shortest movie to ever win Best Picture, at least at the
Oh,
time.
wow.
Seems like I should have started there and worked my way
Yeah,
down.
well, you got to be pretty bold if you think it won Best Picture, I guess.
Apparently, I do not think as highly critically of that movie as it seems to have been in its day.
How does Diane Keaton's name relate to her character's name?
It has 3 of the same letters. 4. 5.
True, but not what I'm looking for.
Her middle name is Annie.
No, it's a good guess. Her birth name is Diane Hall, and she also
Mm.
went by the nickname of Annie.
Mm.
Weird. According to IMDb, how many doors did they go through to make the famous scene with Nicholson chopping down the door in The Shining?
Oh, Kubrick?
53.
62.
It's 60, according
Ah.
to IMDb.
Dang
so
it.
Price is Right rules, Joe's closer.
This is a load of garbage. I hate Price is Right rules.
This is half term last time.
Ugh.
Annie Hall marked the feature film debut for what now well-regarded actress? She has a brief speaking part as Alvy's date.
Meryl Streep.
I don't know.
Sigourney Weaver.
Huh?
Mm.
What is present in every scene that Jack talks to a ghost in The Shining?
Something red.
That is supposedly in most every scene, so I guess technically that's probably right, but it's not what I'm looking
Every
for.
time
exactly.
Price is Right
Every
rules?
time a
Amir.
ghost is
Amir.
Amir is correct. It's about time to wrap up this, but I'm going to give you time to give a little bit of a final thought. Remy, this is your last chance to hammer something home or bring up some other point that didn't have time for in the general discussion. You have the floor. Why should we watch Annie Hall?
I mean, I think you've heard enough here about these 2 films that you know that Annie Hall is something that you're going to be able to identify with on some level and find a lot of good humor in. And if you appreciate clever, smart comedy and just good observational fun, especially in regards to kind of personal, everyday social situations. And if you're familiar with Woody Allen, he has a really good take on that. It's very similar to Seinfeld and all those kinds of things that just poke fun at, you know, your normal, everyday kind of things. So if you like that kind of stuff, you definitely want to check out Annie Hall.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Joe Warner, you have the last word. Final thoughts on The Shining.
Yes, The Shining. It is so expertly made. It has underlying tones of suspense and dread and terror throughout. That is, they're either in subtleties or in your face, and it just builds and builds throughout the movie. Especially if you haven't seen The Shining, then it'll probably blow your mind.
I think these are both great films. If someone has not seen either one of these movies, I think I would lean toward telling them to watch The Shining as well. I think it is a bigger impact for cinema, which means, yeah, I'm going with The Shining. The Shining is one of my favorite horror movies.
So you were
ever.
biased from the start.
I'm always
Why are
biased.
you even hosting this show?
I want you to win again.
Ugh.
And really, Joe won more of the trivia questions and Price is Right rules. He wins the show.
He only got like
He got 2.
one.
What did
or
you get?
2. I got some of the Oscar ones.
Nah. So did he.
And I definitely
I'm
got
biased, man.
put
I
much
gotta-
more effort into the trivia.
I got to pick
I think
something.
I don't know should count against you in trivia.
I got to pick something, man. It's just kind of it's a crapshoot. This
Yeah.
podcast is rigged. I pick it from the
I
start. It
demand a
doesn't matter
recount.
what comes out of your mouth. I'm just going to
I
pick one.
demand a recount.
You both did great, though. I really appreciate it. Where can we find you online, Mr. Joe Warner?
You don't want to know where you can find me online.
Very good. Remington's Wales.
Unfortunately, you cannot find me online. I have no personal profiles or
Very good. Well,
whereabouts
you
or any
guys are
sort of digital
lame.
thumbprint.
If you want to talk to any of us online, you can find me on Twitter at Matthew Dodd. I'll yell at the other two because they're jerks. Joe, since you won, you get to pick a film, talk about it for the ending of the show. Any film you'd like.
Any
You
film?
get to recommend it, and then we'll force whoever is on this show next to talk about it.
I'm going to go for Paper Moon. Paper Moon's fantastic. It's one of the most beautiful movies. It has fantastic acting. The dynamic between the two leads is some of the best acting you'll ever see. It's just an all-around wonderful movie. Go watch it.
Briefly, what's it about?
It is about, it's Dust Bowl era, 1930s, in Midwest, back, I guess, countryside, and it's basically a con man who gets stuck with a little girl who may or may not be his daughter, and they basically become con artists together. And
The girl who is his daughter.
May or may not.
may or may not be.
No, it is his daughter.
Spoiler.
Okay.
alert.
Well, watch
In
the
real
movie and
life.
you'll find out.
No, in real
Yes,
life.
in real
like the
life.
actor. That's what I'm saying.
In
Why
the
are you
movie,
challenging me on this.
in the movie, he may or may not be related.
All right, sounds interesting. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been fun. Enjoy the movies, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Film Fights. If you like the podcast, please subscribe for weekly episodes and share it with your friends. Rate us 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you might be listening to this, as it greatly helps with discoverability for others to find the show. As always, you can discuss this episode and find daily random matchups at our Film Fights Podcast Facebook page. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another episode.